بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار أما بعد. Inshallah ta'ala, tonight we'll start the Muqaddimah, the introduction to Al-Arba'in An-Nawawi, the 40 Hadith by Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah. And 40 Hadith itself is a famous book. It's nothing new. It's been in print for years. It's been in print for years. And tonight, inshallah, we'll start with the importance of 40 hadith. بإذن الله. معلش. خلاص. Inshallah. Like one. Yeah. Inshallah, that's yakfi. Inshallah. طيب. Firstly, 40 hadith. A lot of explanations. A lot of ulama have explained the book. But as an introduction, what I have here is basically a compilation of many of the different introductions, the many introductions to the book from different ulama. The first one here is worth reading through because it discusses basically the level of the book and how the book should be, or the importance of studying this type of book. And this is from the explanation of Sheikh Salih Ali Sheikh. And what he does here is basically mentions the minhaj fi talab al-ilm. How should a person learn? The person who wants to learn Islam, learn about the religion, what's the best way to go about learning? So he says, طلب العلم له أصوله وله رتبه فمن فاته الطلب العلم على رتبه وأصوله فإنه يحرم الوصول. That when a person wants to seek knowledge, learn about Islam, that learning has foundations that must be covered. It's a way to go about it. It's not done haphazardly. You just don't pick up any book and start there. They're beginner books. They're books for the person who reached past the beginner stage, and they're books for the person who's reached the level of a scholar. So he says we have to constantly repeat this issue here, that learning is done in levels. Learning is done in levels. The ulama, they write books. They write books according to different levels. Every book is not on the same level. Some books are written specifically for the scholar, a person who's reached the level of a scholar. Some books are written specifically for the beginner. So when seeking knowledge, la yasla, it's a total mistake for the beginner to start with a book that was written for ulama. That a beginner starts his knowledge, starts his learning, and he starts with the books that were written for scholars. How does a person know the book is written for a scholar? Had he went through the proper tariqah, if he would have took the proper way and started with the basic books, the basic book would have led him to the larger books. So he says that this issue ينبغي أن تقر في قلوب طلبة العلم ومحب العلم. We have to constantly repeat this for the people who want to learn and seek knowledge. And that thing is, ألا وهي أن يطلب العلم شيئا فشيئا. That knowledge is sought. We learn step by step, piece by piece. It's not done in one big halt, one weekend of lectures and khalas. You reach the level of a scholar. But it's done over time. And there's a famous statement that he mentions, كما قال ذلك ابن شهاب الزهري. Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, one of the famous imams of the Sunnah, was born 50 years after the Hijrah. And his name is Muhammad ibn Muslim ibn Ubaidillah. He's famously known as Ibn Shihab al-Zuhri, rahimahullah. And he's a tabi'i. And he has a famous statement where he said, من رام علم جملة ذهب عنه جملة وإنما يطلب العلم على مر الأيام والليالي. That whoever tries to gain knowledge all in one sitting, all at once, that knowledge will leave them all at once. Whoever tries to gain all of their knowledge, all of their information in one sitting, at one time, quickly, that all of that knowledge will leave them quickly. But knowledge is to be sought. Knowledge is gained with the passing of days and nights, over time. It's not a one sitting thing. We leave and that's it, khalas. Day after day after day after day after day. He said, and he made a comparison now, Sheikh Salih. He said, this is the same way that we teach kids how to read and write. Usul al-Kitaba. When children begin learning handwriting, he says, فَإِنَّهُ لَا بُدْ أَنْ يَأْخُذَهُ شَيْئًا فَشَيْئًا. We give them step by step, letter for letter, capital. Once we finish the capital letters, we go to the lowercase letters. Once we finish that, we start connect. Just like that. Just like that, he says, كَذَلِكَ الْعِلْمِ يُبْدَأُ بِتَحْصِيلِ صِغَارِهِ قَبْلَ كِبَارِهِ. Same way when it comes to learning, that we start with the smaller things first, the smaller books, the smaller information first before we move on to the larger books. He says, فَالْعِلْمِ مِنْهُ صِغَارٌ وَمِنْهُ كِبَارٌ. So some things are considered not literally small, like it's not a big deal. Sigar meaning small, but not literally like this issue is not important. As Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar said, Al-Marad bi-sigar al-ilm ma wuddih min masailihi. The smaller knowledge was considered smaller knowledge, as Hafidh ibn Hajar said in his explanation of Fath al-Bari, was considered small knowledge are those issues that are clear. The clear-cut issues. Clear, they don't need much explanation. Right? It doesn't need much explanation. And he said, وَبِكِبَارِهِ مَا دَقَّ مِنْهَا. The larger portion of knowledge, if we use the word large. The bigger issues are those issues that have much more detail to them. So the talib ilm, the beginner, doesn't start with the books that are filled with detail. They start with the books that are clear, simple. طيب. So he says, باعتبار الفهم وباعتبار العمل وباعتبار كون العلم من الله وعن رسوله عليه الصلاة والسلام فإنه ليس في العلم شيء سهل. But when they say small knowledge or small issues and large issues, small issues and minor issues, minor issues and larger issues, that's regards to, is the issue clear or does the issue have a lot of detail? But with regard to the issue being that the knowledge is revelation from Allah Jalla wa Ala, it's revelation from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he says, فَإِنَّهُ لَيْسَ فِي الْعِلْمِ شَيْءٌ سَهْلٌ. There's nothing considered easy or minor when it comes to knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. When it comes to the Quran and the Sunnah, nothing is considered minor. But what's considered, if we say minor, are those issues that are clear. They don't need much detail. And he brings a story here, قد سئل Imam Malik rahimahullah عن مسألة. Imam Malik rahimahullah, somebody asked him a question. فقال لا أدري. Imam Malik said, I don't know. When they asked him the question, Imam Malik rahimahullah, Imam Malik, Imam Dar al-Hijrah, Imam Malik rahimahullah, he said, لا أدري. فقال له السائل. So the person who asked the question said, إنها مسألة خفيفة. So it's just a small little issue. It's just not really that big a deal. It's a small question. Basit. Nothing major. You don't know that? And there's other narrations on Imam Malik. People traveled to see him 2 months. Some narrations 3 months. They asked him 40 questions. He answered 3 or 4. Imam Malik, rahimahullah. They asked him 40 questions. He answered 3 or 4 questions and told them the rest of the 36, I don't know the answer to. So the man said, I'm going to have to go back and tell the people Imam Malik doesn't know. As if it's a threat. I'm going to have to go tell the people Imam Malik doesn't know. Imam Malik said, go tell him. Humility. So some man came and he asked Imam Malik a question. He says, I don't know. The man says, it's a small question, nothing big. Mas'ala khafifa. فغضب. So Imam Malik got angry. He got mad. وقال ليس في العلم شيء خفيف. He said, there's nothing in knowledge that's considered khafif. There's nothing small or minor in knowledge. العلم كله ثقيل. All of knowledge is considered heavy, weighty, serious. Then he asked the man, أما سمعت قول الله تعالى إنا سنلقي عليك قولا ثقيلا. He said, you didn't hear the ayat? You didn't hear the statement of Allah Jalla wa Ala in Surah Al-Muzammil? The 5th ayat, where Allah says, indeed we shall reveal upon you a heavy statement, a heavy word. Meaning the Quran. Thaqeel is heavy. Qawlan thaqila. So, this was the statement of Imam Malik to the man who considered the issue to be something small. Not a big deal. You don't know that? That's the attitude we got now. You don't know that, Akhi? All them classes you go to, you don't know that? Imam Malik, rahimahullah. Imam Malik, he said there's nothing in la adri. There's nothing embarrassing. It's nothing shameful. La adri. Imam Malik, rahimahullah. So Shaykh Salih says, فَالْعِلْمْ مَنْ أَخَذَهُ عَلَىٰ أَنَّهُ ثَقِيلٌ صَعْبْ أَبْدْرَكَ. And this is important. He says, whoever approaches learning as if it is heavy, is serious, is weighty, is difficult, this person, inshallah, will gain the knowledge. Who approaches it as if it's something serious, is weighty, is heavy, it's not something light, this person gains knowledge. وَأَمَّا مَنْ أَخَذَ الْمَسَائِلْ عَلَىٰ أَنَّهَا سَهْلَةٌ مُتَصَوَّرَةٌ مَفْهُومَةٌ. So the other person who approaches, his approach is, or her approach is, this is easy. It's not a big deal. Oh, this is clear. I already know this. Wadih. I don't really need too much explanation. I already know that. Wadih. That everything is already clear. It's not a big deal. He said, this person, يَمُرَّ عَلَيْهَا مُرُورًا سَرِيعًا, and they just go by everything real quick. They just flip through it real fast. He said, this person, فَإِنَّهُ يَفُوتُهُ شَيْءٌ كَثِيرٌ. He's going to miss, or she's going to miss a lot. They're going to overlook a lot based on the approach. That is easy. It's light, lightweight, small thing. I learned that 5 years ago. The attitude that is something light, he said, this type of person, they miss a whole lot. They overlook a whole lot. So he says, Shaykh Salih, فَإِذَنْ لَا بُدْ فِي طَالِبِ الْعِلْمِ مِنَ التَّدَرُّجِ فِيهِ عَلَى أُصُولِهِ وَعَلَى مِنْهَجِيَّةٍ وَاضِحَةٍ. So the person, the talib ilm, the person who's trying to learn, لَا بُدْ, it's a must that things are done in stages. There's no rush. We're not in the race. There's no rush. That things are done in stages, according to the usul, the foundations, and according to the way that the ulama of the past learned and the way that they taught their students. So he says all of knowledge is considered heavy. And now he mentions another important issue that's going to be important. He says, لا بد له من مواصلة ومتابعة. That a person has to continue. It has to be a continuous thing. If it's a 3-week thing, and then we don't learn anything for 6 months, a lot of times it's like you never learned anything. Or you go hard for Ramadan, you learn during Ramadan, and after Ramadan, khalas. You don't do anything till the next Ramadan. It's like you didn't learn anything last Ramadan. It's like you learning again min jadid, all over again, the same thing over and over. He says, so it's a must that is continuous. That it's not a start and stop type of thing. He says, فَالْعِلْمُ يُنْسَى إِذَا تُرِكَ. Knowledge will be forgotten if a person leaves it off. If a person stops sitting and learning and stops trying to learn and increase, the knowledge that they had will be forgotten. وَإِذَا تَوَاصَلَ مَعَهُ طَالِبُ الْعِلْمِ فَإِنَّهُ يَبْقَى. But if a person continues to seek, then that knowledge will stick with them. And this is from the basic things, and this is the approach to learning. There's an approach to learning. There's a way that the ulama, whoever it is that we know and love, it's a way that they got there. It's a way that they reached that level. If you read their biographies, a lot of the books that they studied, a lot of the books that they memorized, we've heard them. We heard of the books. We might have sat in class and went through the book. And you look at their biographies, and these are the same books that you might have sat through a whole class. And the book is Basit. An-Nawawi. This 40 Hadith is considered the first book. This is a beginner's book. The first book that the student of knowledge should start with regards to Hadith. Hadith. As every science has a beginner level. So in the science of fiqh, there's a beginner level book in the science of fiqh. In the science of Al-Lugha Arabiya, there's a beginner level, a book that you start with. Every science has a beginner's level book. So the talib ilm, the person who's learning, they don't jump to the third level book and they haven't completed and they haven't mastered the first level book. No benefit. They can be in that third level book for a year, 2 years, 3 years. It's not going to stick. You didn't go through the proper channels. He says, so it's a must, al-muwasala. And now he says about this book, أَلَّا يَتَسَاهَ طَالِبَ الْعِلْمِ, that the talib ilm, the person learning, they shouldn't be lazy or negligent with regards to this review and being continuous. And he says, فَلَا يَقُولَنَّ قَائِلْ مَثَلًا هَذَا الْكِتَابِ سَهْلٌ. A person shouldn't say that this book is just an easy book. 40 Hadith, it's easy. هذا كتاب سهل. لا. وهذا المتن لا ينبغي أن يشرح لأنه سهل واضح. Or these hadith, they shouldn't be explained. They're clear. Hadith is واضح. They don't need an explanation. He said, لا يقولن. He said, a person shouldn't say this. He said, or they shouldn't say, oh, these hadith, hadith ma'rufa. Or these well-known hadith. We don't really need a sharh for that. Why? Because there's stages. And if a person doesn't go through the proper channels, as he said in the beginning, they'll be prevented. They prevent themselves from gaining the knowledge. He says, وَإِذَا ضَبَطَ طَالِبَ الْعِلْمِ الْمُتُونَ الْمَعْرُوفَ فِي الْحَدِيثِ وفي العلوم المختلفة فإنه يكون مهيئا للانتقال إلى درجات أعلى بفهم وتأسيس لما سبق. That if they master the first level, now they're ahlan. Now they are ahlan. They have the right, for lack of better words, to move on to the next level. But if you haven't mastered the first level, you have no right being in the third level book. You have no right. And there's going to be no benefit to the person if they haven't mastered the previous levels. He says if you master the first one in any science, not just hadith, fiqh, lugha arabiya, ulum al-hadith, any science, he said then they have the ability, or they should have the ability, and at that point they have the right to move on to the next level, along with mastering what came before that. Because in any science, whatever's in level 1 is in level 2. It's in level 2 with additions on top. The house is built from the foundation, the asl. So when you go to level 2, for example, this book, the first hadith, is in this book. It's also in the second book that the ulama advised the beginner to start with. Same hadith. The book starts out with the same hadith. So what's in level 1 is also in level 2. So if you don't master what's in level 1, and you go to level 2, and your level 1 is shaky, then your level 2 is shaky. And this is how a person can go through if they don't take the proper channels, they don't master what's in level 2, and they go to level 3. So the level 3 is shaky. Now the levels 1 is shaky, level 2 is shaky, and level 3. So there's a precise way to go about learning. طيب. The author, Imam An-Nawawi, rahimahullah, وهو محي الدين ibn Sharf ibn Hassan ibn Hussein, and his name is Yahya. His name is Yahya. His nickname, Muhyiddin. His nickname, Muhyiddin al-Alam. His kunya, Abu Zakaria. Abu Zakaria. طيب. Abu Zakaria. Yahya. And they called him Muhyiddin. They called him Muhyiddin, laqab. And it says here, An-Nawawi. And sometimes it's said An-Nawawi. An-Nawawi or An-Nawawi. Some people might call him An-Nawawi. ثم الدمشقي. طيب. It says Ash-Shafi'i. Ash-Shafi'i, as his madhab was the madhab of Imam Ash-Shafi'i. He's a scholar of the madhab of Imam Ash-Shafi'i. Showing that what? It doesn't remove a person. It doesn't remove a person being on the sunnah because they follow a madhab. Ash-Shafi'i. Al-Allama Shaykh al-Madhab وكبير الفقهاء في زمانه. Al-Allama Shaykh al-Madhab. They call him the Shaykh of the madhab, of Imam Shafi'i's madhab during his time. Kabir al-Fuqaha, from the biggest scholars of fiqh during his time. Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah. He was born, Wulida bin Nawa, the city Nawa, which is in Sham, Syria, in that area. An-Nawawi comes from the name of his birthplace, Nawa, which is in Sham, Syria. He was born 631 years after the Hijrah. 631 years after the Hijrah. وتوفي سنة 76 و600. He died 676 years after the Hijrah. So Imam Nawawi rahimahullah was 45 years old when he died. 45, which is young. That's young for the type of work. And as long as his books, these are classical books that he wrote, that his stuff is still, to this day, he was young for the amount of information and the amount of work that Imam An-Nawawi put in. He was young. 45 was young. There are other ulama that were young like that and that their works last. Imam Hafiz al-Hakimi, young. If I'm not mistaken, he might have been in his late 30s, if I'm not mistaken. Allahu a'lam. But they were young. Imam Nawawi, 45. Rahimahullah. طيب. الإمام النووي رحمه الله كان إماما عظيما متخصصا في مختلف العلوم. He was an imam that wasn't restricted. He wasn't restricted to only hadith, but he was an imam in a bunch of different areas, a lot of different sciences, not just hadith. كان إماما فكان متخصصا في الحديث. Number 1. والفقه. Number 2. واللغة العربية. Number 3. He didn't just know one science and beat everybody over the head with it. And many of the ulama, they weren't stuck in one chapter. They might have been known. They might have their name became famous based on a certain chapter, but they weren't restricted. They weren't restricted to one science. Shows ilm is vast. It takes time. It takes time. Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah, he died, he was 45, so that wasn't a lot of time. It's not a lot of time like that. He says, وَكَانَ لِمُؤَلِّفَاتِهِ قَبُولٌ عِنْدَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. That his books, his works are known all over the Muslim world, and his books are famous all over the Muslim world. وَذَلِكَ وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ. And this explanation here is from Sheikh Fawzan, Sheikh Salih Fawzan, hafidahullah, his introduction. He says his books are accepted all over the Muslim world. Why is that? He says, وَذَلِكَ وَاللَّهُ أَعْلَمُ لِنِيَّتِهِ الصَّالِحَةِ وَإِخْلَاصِهِ لِلَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. He said, and that is because of his sincere intention and being sincere for Allah Jalla wa Ala when he put his books together. That he was sincere seeking Allah's reward. And this is something we were told on numerous occasions by Shaykh Abdul Majid al-Subayr, Hafidhahullah. He would mention the same thing. As you'll find ulama that were living during the same time, scholars that lived during the same time. They may have written books on the same issue. One book you never even heard about, doesn't even stand. Nobody even knows of it. And the other book, the whole world knows about it. It's a staple in the Muslim world. And the ulama say this could be from, Wallahu a'lam, they say this could be from the author's intention. The sincerity in that author's intention. And Allah raised that author and he raised that book until the name of the book is still mentioned to the day. Wallahu a'lam. They say it could be from his intention. وَمِنْهَا هَذَا الْكِتَابِ. From those books are this book, Al-Arba'in An-Nawawi. وَمِنْهَا رِيَاضُ الصَّالِحِينَ. Also the book, Riyadh al-Salihin, the Garden of the Righteous. وَمِنْهَا شَرْحُ الصَّحِيحِ Al-Imam Muslim. And his explanation of the Sahih, Imam Muslim's Sahih. And he has a bunch, and he says, وَمِنْهَا مُؤَلَّفَاتٌ فِي الْفِقْهِ مُعْتَمِدَةٌ فِي مَذْهَبِ الْإِمَامِ الشَّافِعِي. And also, the books that he wrote, and they depend, the ulama, the Shafi'iyya, they depend on his books. His books are returned to in the madhab of Imam Shafi'i. It's not like his books are not used, they're returned to, they're depended on. They depend on the books of Imam An-Nawawi and the Shafi'i madhab. طيب. Imam al-Dhahabi rahimahullah, قال Imam al-Dhahabi about Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah. قال الحافظ الذهبي, and he's describing Imam An-Nawawi. Do we all know who Imam al-Dhahabi was? We need to know who Imam al-Dhahabi is, number one. If we don't know who Imam al-Dhahabi is, he's just another person making a statement. Anybody know what Imam al-Dhahabi is famous for? Any books he's famous for? Imam al-Dhahabi has a famous book, Al-Kabair, the major sins. That's one of his famous books, Al-Kabair, the major sins. Another one? Huh? No? Imam al-Dhahabi has a famous book, Sir A'lam al-Nubala. Sir A'lam al-Nubala, which is basically a book of biographies. Book of biographies, starting from the Sahaba up until the time of Imam al-Dhahabi. It includes the Imams of the Sunnah, includes people of Bid'ah, rulers. He has another one, that's the big one. Syid A'lam al-Nubala, Imam al-Dhahabi. He was a student of Shaykh al-Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. Imam al-Dhahabi, Hafiz. Imam al-Dhahabi said, Al-Shaykh, Al-Imam Al-Qudwa, الشيخ الإمام القدوة الحافظ الزاهد العابد الفقيه المجتهد الرباني Imam An-Nawawi. الشيخ, we know الشيخ, الإمام, not the imam of a local masjid. معلش, no disrespect to the imam of a local masjid, but it's not. It's imam. They say imam, yani people travel to that country to meet him. People travel to the country, maybe a country, 2 countries over, to meet this man, to take knowledge from him. Al-Imam, Al-Qudwa. Al-Qudwa, role model, somebody to look to. Somebody to look to, to pattern your life after. Al-Hafiz. Al-Hafiz, we know what a Hafiz is? We know what a Hafiz is?
Hafiz.
Yeah, Hafiz. That's sure.
Yeah, Hafiz is somebody who memorizes everything. Hadith, Hadith and stuff.
Jay. We know the normal Hafiz Quran, that's the famous one, right? The Hafiz, the ulama Hadith, they have names for different levels of the memorizer. طيب, Mustalah Hadith. They have different names. When a person reaches a certain level of memorization, of what his memorization contains, they give him a certain name. We heard Muhaddith before, right? That Muhaddith, Hafiz is another one. طيب, he's on the level of a Hafiz. That's homework. You can go back and check the difference between Hafid, and a muhaddith. Az-Zahid, a person who abstained from the dunya, wasn't really busy with the dunya, right? Az-Zahid. Al-Abid, worshipper. As the Salaf, they were worshipers. They weren't just people who collected a bunch of information. They worshipped at night. As the narrations of a lot of the Salaf, reading the Quran during Ramadan, every 3 days, every 6 days, some twice in the night. They were worshipers, people of ibadah, not just people of talking, and looking good, mashallah. People of worship. It takes a little more to get up out of your bed in the middle of the night. It takes something. There was one narration with a man, he made wudu at night. He made wudu. So, actually he was traveling. This is mentioned on the tape of one of the lectures, Sheikh Salih al-Sheikh there. The ulama hadith, a man, he was traveling. So he came and he stayed with the man. So, the host bought the visitor some water. He's a student of knowledge. He bought the visitor some water. What is the water for? Before he went to sleep, he bought the man some water. Wudu. They prayed Isha already. Khalas. They already prayed Isha. After Isha, they going to sleep. He brings the man a bucket of water. Make wudu again? Tahajjud. Pray at night. Tayyib. He comes in the room the next morning. The man didn't touch the water. So what did he say to him? He asked him in Talib of Hadith. You're a student of knowledge. You don't stand and pray at night? Ajib. You want to learn. You're trying to learn Islam. You learning a religion. You're a Talib. You don't stand and pray at night. The man said, but I'm a traveler. Ani musafir. I'm traveling now. You know we get the shorten the salat, right? Combine, shorten, the rukhsa. For traveling. He said, but I'm a traveler. The man said, even if you're a traveler, they were people of ibadah. They weren't people of just a bunch of, and these words that are used here are used for many of the ulama of the past, many. When you read their biographies, it says abid, worshipper. Al-faqih. We know faqih. Person who's reached a level, alim, scholar of fiqh, al-faqih. So now he has a title. He has one of the titles for a scholar of hadith, al-hafidh. He has another title from the scholars of fiqh, al-faqih, hafidh, faqih. Al-mujtahid, the one who's reached a level to make ijtihad. This is the level of Imam Nawawi who put these ahadith in this book. We're talking about a hadith without an explanation, even though he does have his own explanation. We're talking about the metan itself. Ar-Rabbani, the ulama, the one who teaches the people the smaller knowledge before the larger knowledge, as we said before. He starts with the smaller books, he starts with the smaller information before we move to the third or the fourth or even the second level. And he says, Shaykh al-Islam. Shaykh al-Islam. We know what Shaykh al-Islam means? Does anybody know why a person is called Shaykh al-Islam? Everybody is not called Shaykh al-Islam, number one. And it's not just Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah who's called Shaykh al-Islam, as we can see now. Imam al-Dhahabi referred to Imam An-Nawawi as Shaykh al-Islam. A reviver. That's a mujaddid. A reviver is a mujaddid. We know Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. He's not the only one who's considered Shaykh al-Islam now. Shaykh al-Islam meaning the person has knowledge not in just one area, all areas, well-rounded. And everyone, all the ulama, even though we know all of them are not referred to as Shaykh al-Islam, right? Allah raises some above others, and they all have their levels. Shaykh al-Islam. طيب. قال الحافظ ابن الكثير. We know Ibn Kathir, صح? Ibn Kathir is famous for what? Tafsir. Famous for tafsir. But what's the title he gave him? Al-Hafiz Ibn Kathir. He has books in hadith, Mustalah hadith. Ibn Kathir has books in Mustalah hadith also. He said, Ibn Kathir said about Imam An-Nawawi, Al-Shaykh, Al-Imam, Al-Allama, Shaykh al-Madhab, the Imam, the Shaykh of the Madhab, Madhab al-Shafi'i, right? وَكَبِيرُ الْفُقَهَا فِي زَمَانِهِ, from the largest, from the greatest scholars of fiqh during his time. Imam al-Dhahabi, he died at 45. Died at 45. From the greatest scholars of fiqh in his time, and he was 45. Of course, there were scholars older than him, right? 45. And from the greatest scholars of fiqh during his time, these people, Islam, the level was different. The level, the seriousness was on another level. It wasn't something, just a cool thing to do for now, right? طيب مكانة النووي عند علماء الشافعية. And this shows, brothers, that a person following the madhab doesn't mean that they're not following the sunnah. It's misunderstood a lot of times. Brothers say, oh, they're not on the sunnah. Why not? They Maliki. طيب Malikis don't follow the sunnah. They're not on the sunnah. Why? Oh, they're Shafi. They're Hanbali then. They're not Sunni, they're Hanbali. Imam An-Nawawi al-Shafi. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali. There's nothing new. It might be new to us, but ulama following or practicing a madhab and whatever, that's a whole discussion in itself. What does it mean to follow a madhab? That's a whole discussion in itself. But just for clarity, it's not blind following. It's not leaving off text and following a person. It's not what a madhab means. It's not what following a madhab means. Are there people who do that? Yeah, there are people who do that. And that's the blameworthy portion of it. There are people who do that, but that's not what Ibn Rajab, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah was Hanbali. Say he ain't on the sunnah because he's Hanbali. Imam An-Nawawi, Shafi'i, Tayyib. They said about him, Shaykh al-Madhab. They considered that he was the Shaykh of their madhab during his time. Kabir al-Fuqaha. That same statement, this statement of Ibn Kathir, showed he was major, he was well-rounded. This book is in Hadith, but he was famous in other areas also, is the point. Imam al-Dhahabi said about him, وَكَانَ رَأْسًا فِي مَعْرِفَةِ الْمَذْهَبِ. He was at the head of the people during his time who had knowledge of that madhab. Imam An-Nawawi. Not just in Hadith, but in fiqh, Lugha Arabiya. This is where the ulama were well-rounded. There's a book, Tabaqat al-Kubra. It discusses Qala al-Qadi. It discusses the different ulama of that madhab, the Shafi'i madhab. Right? And they have different levels, basically. Different time periods, different levels. Qala al-Qadi, he said about Imam An-Nawawi, he said, Shaykh al-Islam. The Shaykh al-Islam we know is Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah. He said about Imam An-Nawawi, Shaykh al-Islam. And he said, Barakat al-Ta'ifa al-Shafi'iyya. He said he was a blessing to the Shafi'i madhab. Imam An-Nawawi, rahimahullah. Huh? These brothers telling people about the madhab. Imam An-Nawawi, a Shafi'i. This is Al-Qadi. In the book, Tabaqat al-Kubra, which is a book of basically the imams or the scholars of the Shafi'i madhab over different times. And you have Tabaqat al-Hanabila. Every madhab pretty much has a book where they've gathered the names of the scholars of different times, specifically to the madhab, regarding the madhab, whatever madhab it is. Tayyib. This is from Shaykh al-Thamaraat, rahimahullah. His explanation, his muqaddimah. Shaykh al-Thamaraat, rahimahullah. قال رحمه الله فإن الحافظ النووي, and this is what he's referred to, Al-Hafiz An-Nawawi رحمه الله من أصحاب الشافعي المعتبرة. He's from the ulama, the Shafi'iyya. They depend upon his statement. They return back to his books. This is how major he was in fiqh. We're not even talking about this right now. Now they're going into something else to show the ulama are well-rounded. We can't be stuck on one science. And from it is that we learn the beginner book of each science. He says, وَمِنْ أَشَدِّ الشَّافِعِيَّ حِرْصًا عَلَى التَّأْلِيفِ. He was like the person who would write the most. who were authored books the most from the Shafi'iyya during that time. He says, فَقَدْ أَلَّفَ فِي فُنُونٍ شَتَّى, but he authored books in many different sciences. فِي حَدِيث وَعُلُومِهِ, in the science of hadith and the different sciences of hadith. وألف في العلم اللغة كتاب تهذيب الأسماء واللغات, and he wrote a book in the Arabic language called تهذيب الأسماء واللغات. And then he says the same thing that Shaykh Fawzan said about him. وهو في الحقيقة من أعلم الناس, he was from the most knowledgeable people. والظاهر والله أعلم أنه من أخلص الناس في التأليف. He said, Wallahu a'lam, Allah knows best, but it seems as though he is from the most sincere people when it came to authoring books. Wallahu a'lam, the Shaykh Al-Thamaraat said about him. Why? لأن تأليفاته رحمه الله انتشرت في العالم الإسلامي. Because all of his works, not all of his works, but his works generally are spread all throughout the Muslim world, and they still remain to this day. Not just this book, Sharh Sahih Muslim, he explained the Sahih Muslim. He has an explanation for Sahih Muslim. Riyadh al-Salihin, Gardens of the Righteous. And Shaykh Al-Thamaraat says, he says, فَلَا تَكَادْ تَجِدْ مَسْجِدًا إِلَّا يُقْرَى فِيهِ كِتَابْ رِيَاضِ الصَّالِحِينَ. He said, it'd be hard pressed to find a masjid where they don't read the book Riyadh al-Salihin. And in Mecca, what they used to do is after Salat al-Asr, generally, not every masjid, but a lot of masajid after Salat al-Asr, the Imam turns around and he reads some hadith from Riyadh al-Salihin by Imam An-Nawawi. Just qira'at, no explanation. Most of them wouldn't even explain the hadith. They would turn after the Salat, maybe 5 minutes, read 3-4 hadith and close out, best, after Asr, and then everybody goes on their way. It said you'll find hard pressure. It'd be hard to find a masjid where they don't read from the book Riyadh al-Salihin. He says, وَهُوَ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهُ مُجْتَهِدٍ. He reached the level of a mujtahid, a person who can look into the dalil, and which is a high level of scholarship that everybody doesn't reach. Everybody doesn't reach the level of a mujtahid. Shaykh Al-Thamaraat said he reached the level of a mujtahid. وَالْمُجْتَهِد يُخْتِي وَيُصِيبُ. The mujtahid is correct sometimes, and he makes mistakes. Sometimes he's incorrect, sometimes he's correct. Sometimes the mujtahid is correct, and sometimes the mujtahid is incorrect. He can be wrong. Imam An-Nawawi, rahimahullah, could be wrong. He could make a mistake, rahimahullah. Mumkin. Just like anybody else. If Imam An-Nawawi could be wrong about something, what makes us think that the ulama that we know and love can't make a mistake and be wrong in the issue? It's overboard. We go overboard. Overboard in putting people in the proper places. Not that they're not ulama, but we can't raise scholars to the level of people who are infallible, to the level of the Anbiya. We don't raise people above the level that Allah put them in. And this is not new. You never know. 600 years after the Hijrah. Over 800 years ago. And people before him that made mistakes. There's nothing new that the alim, the scholar, could make a mistake. It's possible. So Shaykh Al-Thamaraat says, وَقَدْ أَخْطَأَ رَحِمَهُ اللَّهُ فِي مَسَائِلِ الْأَسْمَاءِ وَالصِّفَاتِ. He said that Imam An-Nawawi, rahimahullah, he made a mistake in the issue of Allah's names and attributes. He had a mistake in the issue of Allah's names and attributes. فَكَانَ يُؤَوَّلْ فِيهَا لَكِنَّهُ لَا يَنْكِرُهُ. He used to make ta'wil, distort the meaning off the surface meaning, off the dhahir, the apparent meaning. He would make ta'wil. Imam An-Nawawi, rahimahullah. Shaykh Al-Thamaraat says, وَأَرْجُ أَنْ يَكُونَ مِنَ الْخَطَأِ الْمَغْفُورِ. Shuf. He says, but we hope and we pray that mistake is a mistake that will be forgiven. It's ulama, they're on a different level. We waiting for people to make mistakes so we can bring the hammer down on them. I knew I was going to get them. I knew it was only a matter of time before I got them, right? It was only a matter of time. Imam Shaykh Al-Thamaraat, rahimahullah, he said, أرجو أن يكون من الخطأ المغفور. we hope that that mistake is from the mistakes that Allah will forgive him for. He says, وَأَنْ يَكُونَ مَا قَدَّمَهُ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ وَالنَّفْعِ مِنَ السَّعْوَ الْمَشْكُورِ. He said, we hope that what he put forth, all the work that he did, he died at 45 years old. Riyad al-Salihin, Sharh Sahih Muslim, books in fiqh, Shafi'i madhab. They said he was the head of the ruts fi ma'rifat al-madhab in his time. He was the head of the people who knew the madhab. Hadith, fiqh, ulum al-hadith, mustalahat. Lugha Arabiya at 45. He said for all of that work that he put forth, Shaykh Uthaymeen says, we hope that he will be forgiven and that the ayat, and that this ayat in the Quran, we hope that this ayat applies to Imam An-Nawawi. Where Allah says, قال تعالى إن الحسنات يذهبن السيئات. That indeed the good deeds erase away the bad deeds. He said, we hope that this ayat applies to Imam An-Nawawi regarding the mistake that he made in the chapter of Allah's names and attributes. طيب. Imam Nawawi says in his Muqaddimah, his actual introduction to the book, after praising Allah Jalla wa Ala, he mentions the fact that why gather 40 hadith? Why not 30? Why not 100? It's the kalam of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? Why stop at 40? I mean, statement of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, why limit it to 40 hadith? Anybody? Why make it 40 hadith? And not just, let's not do 60. Well, how about we make it odd? Right? What's it? Say 43 or 55. Why 40? Does anybody know why 40? He mentions in his introduction why he wrote the book 40 Hadith. He says it was narrated on Ali ibn Abi Talib, wa Abdullah bin Mas'ud, wa Mu'adh bin Jabal, wa Abi Darda, wa Ibn Umar, wa Ibn Abbas, wa Anas ibn Malik, wa Abi Huraira, wa Abi Sayyid al-Khudri. 8 people he mentioned from the Sahaba. Radiyallahu anhum, min turuq kathirat, from many different ways, many different chains. That these 8 companions narrated this hadith. He says, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, that the hadith says, من حفظ على أمتي 40 حديثا من أمر دينها بعثه الله تعالى يوم القيامة في زمرة الفقهاء والعلماء. طيب. Whoever, that the hadith says, on all these companions, we know those names, right? Sahaba. Ibn Umar, Ibn Abbas, Anas ibn Malik, Abi Darda. طيب. All these Sahaba, the hadith says, whoever hafidha, whoever memorized, or guards, or gathers, or protects from our ummah, 40 hadith, as the hadith says, 40 hadithan, min amri diniha, regarding the deen, ba'athahu Allahu yawm al-qiyamah, fi zumrat al-fuqaha wal-ulama, that Allah will raise him up yawm al-qiyamah with the group of the ulama, the scholars. He will be raised with the scholars on yawm al-qiyamah and the fuqaha. This is the hadith narrated on those sahaba. طيب. This is why I chose the number 40 according to that hadith. Khalas. And there's another narration. There are many narrations. That was one narration. وَفِي رِوَايَةٍ بَعَثَهُ اللَّهُ فَقِيهًا عَالِمًا, that Allah will raise him up and he will be a faqih, a scholar of fiqh, عالم, فَقِيهًا عَالِمًا. وفي رواية أبي درداء كنت له يوم القيامة شافعا شهيدا. The Prophet ﷺ said in one riwayah, I will be for him that day an intercessor. I will intercede for him on that day, and I will stand and bear witness for him that day. طيب. In another narration it says, وفي رواية ابن مسعود قيل له أدخل من أي أبواب الجنة شئت. For the one who does this with the 40 hadith, it will be said to him يوم القيامة, enter through paradise, whichever door you want to enter to. Choose a door that you want to enter to go to paradise and go. For the one who does what? 40, not 60. 40. According to the hadith. Khalas? Let me see what you got. Like. جيد. This in there? طيب. وفي رواية ابن عمر كتب في زمرة العلماء وحشر في زمرة الشهداء. That it will be written that he is from the scholars and he will be raised up with the shuhada, the shaheeds. Imam Nawawi says after that, Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, واتفق الحفاظ على أنه حديث ضعيف. The Huffaz, the ulama of hadith, they all agree that the hadith about the 40 is ضعيف, weak hadith. On all those companions, the hadith is weak. طيب. And there are other people. He's not the only one who wrote books on 40 hadith. He's not the only one. The people who came before him, many books on hadith. وقد صنف العلماء رضي الله عنهم في هذا الباب ما لا يحصى من المصنفات. There are plenty of ulama who wrote 40 hadith. فأول من علمته صنفه عبد الله ibn al-Mubarak. We know Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. Huh? Gotta know Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak. And he mentions a bunch of names here. ثم حسن al-Hasan. He says al-Hasan ibn Sufyan al-Nasawi. وأبو بكر al-Ajuri. And he mentions a bunch of names. طيب. He says, so I made salat al-istikhara. وقد استخرت الله تعالى في جمع 40 حديثا. He says, so I made istikhara to Allah. Should I gather 40 hadith? Huh? He knows the narration is weak. The narration about the 40 hadith is weak. So he said, I made istikhara. Should I gather 40 hadith? اقتداء بهؤلاء الأئمة الأعلام وحفاظ الإسلام. Following the footsteps of those previous imams who gathered 40 hadith. The hadith is weak, sir. They all know the hadith is weak. He said, should I gather hadith following the footsteps of these ulama who gathered the hadith? He said, وقد اتفق العلماء على العمل بالحديث الضعيف في فضائل الأعمال. He said the ulama have agreed that you can act on a weak hadith if it's in the chapter of Fada'il al-A'mal, virtuous actions. Virtuous actions, fasting on this day. Maybe the hadith is weak, fasting on this day. Whoever does this, the hadith is weak. Fada'il al-A'mal. And that's the issue. Fada'il al-A'mal. Weak hadith when it pertaining to virtuous actions. And here, which is another introduction of Sheikh Saajid al-Shithri, he mentions those who say, because not all the ulama, he says, fihi nadar, number one. Fi hadha nadar. He said, this point right here where Imam An-Nawawi says this, he said, yani, fihi nadar. He said, no, he didn't, fihi nadar, when they say that, they mean, it's not really totally accurate. It's a nice way of saying it. It's nice. Fihi nadar. Not he out of pocket. No. He's wrong, not like that. Fihi nadar. We got to look at that. Why? He says, لأنه لم يتفق العلماء على العمل بالحديث الضعيف. That the ulama didn't all agree on that. But some did say it's okay to use weak hadith when it comes to virtuous actions. But the point of him saying this, he says, but the ones who do say that you can use weak hadith for those situations, he says, الذين أجازوا العمل به في فضائل الأعمال وضعوا له شروطا. They make conditions. They mention certain conditions. So in order for what? A person to use, for example, this hadith, gathering 40 hadith. The one who gathers it will be raised with the ulama yawm al-qiyamah. Hadith is weak. But it's a virtuous action. So they say, number one, if you're going to use a hadith like this, أَلَا يَكُونْ شَدِيدُ الضَّعْفِ. That is not very weak. It has some weakness in it, but it's not like severely weak. فَضْلًا عَنْ أَنْ يَكُونَ مَوْضُوعًا. Especially if it's mawdu'. And that's a term of hadith. Point being, it's not extremely weak. They say number two, أَلَّا يَعْتَقِدْ ثُبُوتَهُ عِنْدَ الْعَمَلِ بِهِ. That a person, when they do that action, they don't believe that they acted on that weak hadith. They have to understand that hadith is weak, even if they do the action. Clear? Wadi? They're doing the action, they have to know and believe, okay, the hadith is weak, even though they're doing the action. It says, ثالثا ألا يعمل به أمام الآخرين, that they don't do it in front of other people. They don't do it in front of other people. فيراه بعض الجهال فيعتقد سنيته. So that somebody who may not know, they're ignorant, they don't know, they might think that's from the Sunnah. He says, رابعا ألا يخالف نصا شرعيا صحيحا ثابتا, that whatever that action is, it doesn't go against an authentic text. Meaning, if this hadith is talking about gathering 40 hadith, is there another hadith that's authentic saying not to do this or going the opposite of it? If there's a hadith, clear hadith, going in opposition to it, then you don't do it at all. خامسا أن يندرج تحت الأصل شرعي معمول به, that it has some type of origin in the religion. Somewhere in the religion, there's some benefit in gathering hadith, which there is, and he's going to mention a hadith. Imam An-Nawawi. He says, lastly, that when a person narrates the hadith that's weak, that he narrates it with a sigha al-tamrid, meaning when the ulama narrate a hadith, there's certain words to let you know that this hadith is not that strong. It's kind of weak, actually. So there's certain words that they use. Meaning we say qala sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They might not say qala for that hadith. Might say qila, which in Arabic makes a difference. But whatever word, whatever terms that they use, it shows that that hadith is not on the same level of an authentic hadith, that a person has to do that. طيب. Imam An-Nawawi, knowing all of that, Imam An-Nawawi gathers the 40 hadith. And he says here, مع هذا ليس اعتمادي على هذا الحديث. He said, when I gathered these 40 hadith, I wasn't depending on that hadith, the weak one. I'm not gathering hadith based on the weak hadith of whoever gathers 40 hadith. Allah will raise them up Yawm al-Qiyamah with the scholars. Or the Prophet ﷺ, I'm not using that hadith when I gathered these 40. طيب. He says, بل على قوله عليه الصلاة والسلام في الحديث في الأحاديث الصحيحة. But I'm using the authentic hadith from the Prophet ﷺ. So there's an asl. There is an origin in the religion for gathering a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And that's what Imam An-Nawawi used. That's what he went on when he gathered these hadith. ليبلغ الشاهد منكم الغائب. But the Prophet ﷺ said, the one who witnessed something, he should inform the one who didn't witness it. If a person has a hadith, then he should share it with the people who didn't hear the hadith. طيب? That's one hadith. وقوله عليه الصلاة والسلام, and this is another encouragement. نظر الله امرئ سمع مقالتي فوعاها. May Allah brighten the face of the person who hears my statement. This is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. May Allah brighten the face of the person who hears my statement, and he فوعاها, he preserves it, he preserves the statement, فأداها كما سمعها, and he relays it the same way that he heard it from me. So there's a asl, there's an origin for gathering a hadith, and there's a virtue for gathering a hadith in the religion. 40, the one about 40 is not authentic. And we'll wrap it up, inshallah, with this last piece. And we'll start next week with the first hadith. But he says, the hadith that he gathered in this book, he said, وَقَدْ رَأَيْتُ جَمَعَ 40 أَهَمَّ مِنْ هَذَا كُلِّهِ. Because there are other books, hadith have been gathered, 40, pertaining to, as he says, usul al-din, aqidah. There are books of 40 hadith that have been gathered pertaining to a furu', fiqh. Right? Different issues, az-zuhd, al-adab, al-jihad, khutbah, al-khutub. He said, all of those are good. He said, but I wanted to gather 40 hadith that would be more comprehensive. Not just in fiqh, not just in aqidah, but 40 hadith that they're inclusive of all of the sciences. He said, وقد وصف العلماء كل حديث منها بأن مدار الإسلام عليها أو هو نصف الإسلام أو ثلثه ونحو ذلك. And the hadith that he gathered, they have been mentioned by ulama as being, for example, the religion, all of Islam is covered in these 3 hadith. There are ahadith like that. That the ulama say the whole of the religion is contained in these 3 ahadith. And we'll get to them, inshallah. Or some of them say, nisf al-Islam. Half of Islam is contained in these couple ahadith right here. All of the religions contain, half of the religions contained in this. Or 1/3 of the religions contained in this. So he used those ahadith when he gathered the book. He says, ثُمَّ أَلْتَزِمُ فِي هَذِهِ الْأَرْبَعِينَ أَن تَكُونَ صَحِيحَةً وَمُعْظَمُهَا فِي صَحِيحَيْ الْبُخَارِ وَمُسْلِمِ. He said, I tried to stick to keeping making sure all the hadith in the book were sahih, authentic, and most of them are in Bukhari and Muslim. He said, and he removed most of the chain, meaning the isnad. All of the narrators are not mentioned for the change. لِيَسْهُلَ حِفْظُهَا وَيَعُمْ الْإِنْتِفَاعُ بِهَا inshallah. So that it'll be easier to memorize. And anybody who has the ability to memorize these ahadith should memorize them. And he says, وَيَنْبَغِي لِكُلِّ رَاغِبٍ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَنْ يَعْرِفَ هَذِهِ الْأَحَادِيثِ بِمَا اشْتَمَلَتْ عَلَيْهِ مِنَ الْمُهِمَّاتِ. Anybody, he says here, who has a desire to seek Allah's reward in the hereafter should memorize these ahadith. They should memorize these ahadith due to the benefit that is contained in them. And again, anybody who has the ability should memorize these ahadith, as they're 42. They're actually 42 ahadith, even though it's called 40 hadith. Yani, we say estimation. It's estimated to 40. And Imam Ibn Rajab, al-Hanbali rahimahullah, he added 8 more on. So his book, Jawam al-Kalam, his explanation for the 40 hadith actually has 50 hadith. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali rahimahullah, he came and he added 8 more in Jawam al-Kalam. So the person who has the ability should memorize, try to memorize these hadith, as they're not very long. There's a few long ones, not all of them are very long. Class is once a week. You got 7 days to memorize, sometimes 3 lines, right? 7 days to memorize 3 lines. When we would do this together, we would do sometimes we would do 5 hadith a day, depending, everybody's different, 5 hadith a day, depending on your schedule. A day we would do 4, 3, somebody else do 2, whatever your capabilities are. I'm just mentioning 5, it's in the middle, huh? We have 7 days for one, inshallah. 7 days you might be able to get 2. Mumkin. Some of them are long, but not all of them are long. Hadith Jibril is long. There are a few that are longer than others, but generally a lot of them are 3 lines, 4 lines. And at the same time, we're memorizing the statements of the Prophet ﷺ. And these are hadith, as they mentioned in all the muqaddimat, all the introductions, there are a lot of principles that surround the religion contained in these hadith. Even though they're short, a lot of them are short, but it's a lot of benefit contained in these hadith. And Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Abbad, hafidhullah, he explained it, and he said that he taught, there was a man who came to his class, Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Abbad, who teaches in the Haram in al-Madinah. He said a man came to his class, so he memorized the hadith, Arba'in An-Nawawi. So he said when the man came back, one day, the man came to him, he said, I feel like I'm a scholar. That's what the man said. The man came to him, he said, I feel like I'm a scholar. He memorized Arba'in An-Nawawi, 42 hadith. He said, I feel like I'm a scholar. Shaykh Abdul Razak said to the man, why you say that? He said, because I live with a couple of guys, and every time they ask a question, I got a hadith I can respond to them with. 40 hadith. Allah Akbar. So Shaykh directed him to, you're not an alim and not know 40 hadith, but it shows the level and the importance of these hadith. Even though they're short, it's a level 1 book, but as Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh said, you can't push stuff off as, it's just 40 hadith. We all know those hadith. From the hadith that I mentioned, Buni al-Islam ala khams. Islam is built upon 5. We know the hadith, right? If we know it and understand it, and the man said, I feel like I'm a scholar. Because every time we're talking about an issue, there's a problem, I have a hadith that I can respond with. So that shows, inshallah ta'ala, the importance of these hadith. And we'll start next week, inshallah, with al-hadith al-awwal, which is another hadith that we all know. Deeds are by intentions, innamal a'malu bin niyat. Any questions? طيب. If anybody can memorize a hadith, I encourage you to. And we can maybe sema after Isha, we can sit for a couple minutes and just make sure the hifd is good and the memorization is tayyib. And we'll start next week with Al-Hadith Al-Awwal, inshaAllah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.